Welcome back, friends. We are here for another episode of Sit Crooked Talk Straight. I am Katie Myers,
And I'm Leanne Jameson.
and we are giddy with delight. We are full of energy as we prepare to discuss with you the science behind some of this woo-woo stuff that we talk about. And I, I, I love that I still use the word woo-woo, even though at times I feel like it's slightly disrespectful to the
Spiritual community and the energetic,
but I also
quantum
like one of those,
physics, quantum physics society.
I'm also one of those people that's like, you can't call my mom any name, but I can call my mom whatever I want because she's my mom.
Right.
Like you can't talk bad about something if you're not part of it, but if you're part of it, then you can say kind of, and which I
What
am.
you want.
I am very much into this community. I call myself a healer. I don't have any shame or qualms about that. I no longer have any hesitation around that. I
Mhm.
believe in energy. I believe in the metaphysical. I believe in the spiritual, and I believe in the science that also supports so much. But we get a lot of naysayers. We get a lot of eye rolls. We get a lot of like,
Well,
oh,
and even in the scientific community, just working with research scientists myself in my programs, it's just like they have this part of them. And I know I was like this too, even in the counseling world. It's a much more accepted now than it was 15, 20 years ago, I believe anyways. And
great.
I had mentors that were, I believe, cutting edge as far as mindfulness and spirituality, who again, I was aligned with, that helped me to understand this. And like they're like, here, you need to read this book, right? All
Mm-hmm.
about Taoism and loving kindness meditation. And shout out Kathy Duke. She was my first mentor ever, that she's like, here's this book. I want you to go to the temple. I'm like, what are you talking about, lady? And then I fell in love. So
And so much of it can be like, don't knock it till you try it. Like
right.
we become, and it's a survival mechanism, it's a coping skill of skepticism, right? Like we
Mhm.
protect ourselves from things that don't maybe align with things that we were taught growing up, that's never been modeled for us. We're not familiar with this language. It's different, it's not familiar. And I always encourage, right, like be as open as you can. Don't knock it to fight. And I will often say when people do mock the spiritual realm and the metaphysical and the um, other world. I'm again trying to come up with words that do not involve woo woo, because that is something like I still use that word, and I kind
Mhm.
of feel like I need to. I'm feeling a tug on my heart that like there needs to be a
To shift
shift.
away from that.
I
Yes.
want an energetic shift around that language. Um,
Yes.
and so we mock what we don't understand. And I used to say this to Jonathan all the time. If he would make fun of something, it'd be like, you mock what you don't understand.
Yep.
And
Yep.
there's some humor to that, and there's so much truth to it.
Mm.
And so if you find yourself in that boat, um, keep listening. Because I
Exactly.
think some of what we're going to talk about today is like obviously the encouragement to stay open. But then, like you have mentioned, and Leanne has way more depth and breadth and knowledge of the science and the research behind it. I am
Mhm.
more of like, I have experienced it. I know there's science and research behind it. I know of some of it, but my take on it is I can't deny my experience. And that is where I have become a true believer.
Mm.
But Lee's going to share way more of just some of the science and research and the backing from the scientific community of
Right.
this is not this is not made up. People are
It,
making this shit up. This is not
right.
fake.
Well, and honestly, when we look at, I mean, like even yoga practices go back 2000 years ago, where people started practicing in this, in being able to, those people who actually, it started with like in the warmer climates, Southeast Asia
Mhm.
and stuff like that, where they didn't have to fight for their food or be afraid of the ice age and all this shit. Like there's a
Mhm.
whole history behind it.
Mhm.
But this is really, I mean, talk about a practice of energy that aligns from 2000 years ago. So now that research is finally catching up in the Western civilization,
Really slow sometimes.
we are. It's so important to recognize that there are some major players who are beginning to use alternative medicines because they have seen it work, right? We know this, we've experienced it, or maybe you haven't. Maybe this is something that you're just venturing into. I was fortunate enough that my mom knew a little bit or felt a little bit
Mhm.
more about these alternative medicines when I was younger. Like I remember her taking me to a Reiki healer. I remember her,
Wow.
taking me to a psychic and introducing me and like having my like everything read. So being able to have that embedded, also Roman Catholic, grew up, right, like so very conflicting,
Right.
but really grateful that I had those two aspects. So with science, right, when we're looking at mindfulness and meditation and what that does to an individual's quality of life, not just quality of life though, now they're identifying it as quantity of life.
Yeah.
And both of those together is that they have a quantity, a longer time that we're living, and we're living more fulfilling lives
Yeah.
just based on our energy and our breath and our intention and tapping into the spirit that is within us.
Mm.
There is this one study that goes back aged, like, I don't know, maybe it was like a decades ago, right? Where it was like in the 60s or 70s. Um, and of course, they like demystified it and they were like, that's a bunch of bullshit. Like, whatever, it is what it is. And I still love referencing this because
Mhm.
I know that there's something there where somebody, I can't even remember who the scientist was, the researcher, who was measuring the body as they were alive and on the table as they were passing away. Their physical body was passing away, and they found a fraction of weight, unexplained weight, that
Interesting.
was no longer there after somebody had passed. So connecting that, they were like trying to connect it with like the soul, when the soul
Mhm.
leaves the body, when the spirit leaves the body, because we are mere, vessels,
Yeah.
our human body. And this is where this all comes from, truly, is like recognizing that we have energy within us.
Yeah.
Call it spirit, soul, call it neurotransmitters firing, and it creates energy, like everything. And we can get into quantum physics here. I mean, there's so much behind the
Mhm.
energy that we possess. And going into the scientific realm of like, even the desk that I sit at, like, it's not really here. It's just all these particles of energy that have
Mhm.
formed to create this, right?
Yeah.
So cool. I can geek out on this shit for like
I know.
days.
I know. I know.
But so, I mean, like, that's just like the energy form of it. But then, like, what actually gets to happen for us as human beings, and this goes into CBCT, which I love, compassion based, or cognitive based compassion therapy, which was created actually at Emory University. And that's where I went through my, intensive weekend there.
Mhm.
And they were talking about what gets to shift when we actually, and this maybe not so much on the energy, but like our mindset and the love. Love is actually an energy. Like
Mhm.
it's a specific megahertz. It might be 585. Don't quote me on that. But this bowl behind me actually resonates at that megahertz. This is to open up your heart.
Mhm.
And so when you think about the compassion, the cognitive based compassion therapy, it really does work in the heart, and it works with the energy of love, which is a very high frequency. And how that actually connects us in a community and just raises the oneness, and which raises compassion for all, including ourselves. So that's some of the energy. But like even just looking at, and I want you to speak on like Reiki because I know you're a Reiki healer.
Mhm.
These are some of the forms of energy healing that they are using at Johns Hopkins, at Yale Cancer Center, at the Maryland Medical Center,
That's pretty cool.
Harvard.
Cleveland
Right.
Clinic has a study, Cleveland Clinic Oncology, they do Reiki as an adjunct, it doesn't take the place of anything, but they have found that their cancer patients who have had Reiki as part of their treatment have better outcomes, better results,
That
more
is
remission.
exactly what they're saying too at the Harvard Medical School, right? Is that it actually enhances their ability to heal, and people's ability to heal when we add this element in. Mindfulness, they're starting to do mindfulness and meditation at hospitals and creating a room for that. And that's energy work. And that's, when you think about mind, I mean, our thoughts create the emotion. Emotion is energy. Or you can hear it all the time, energy in motion is
Mhm.
emotion. And that elicits certain responses, and that puts out certain frequencies,
Mhm.
and can heal so much of your body. So that's what I love about this, is that now research is coming up, but I've had so many research scientists say, well, I'm going to be laughed at by my scientific community if I come in and I'm saying, hey, I'm doing this whole, I'm creating my entire business on, healing hands and energy alignment and, these concepts, where I'm just like, oh, so I sent her all of these articles. I'm like, here you go, hon. Like, this is where we're going, and you are on the cutting edge of it. Like, this is where you're meant to be. And I'm finding more and more souls like that, gravitating towards that. So
Mhm. I
I'll be
love
quiet.
that. Just to confirm, 528 is the 528 hertz is the love frequency. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, my favorite article is the Cleveland Clinic's article about, right, like their oncology um, center. And I just, some people will say, like, is it not just like you're just trying to fake yourself out, right? Like, fake it till you make it.
Right.
To that, I respond, even if it is, let's just say, like, okay, fine, you're right, we're just,
Mind over matter, whatever.
it's all placebo effect, it's all whatever. If it improves the quality of my life, if I live happier and more joyfully as a result, frankly, I'm going to tell all y'all naysayers to shut the fuck up. Because you're dampening my vibe. Like, you are really impacting my frequency when you come with all of your negative energy. So you can take that elsewhere.
Or I
Um,
will go elsewhere. That's fine. You can stay exactly where you are. I'm going to leave.
I got two legs. I'm not a tree. My therapist told me that when I was in my early 20s. You're not a tree. Get up and move. You don't like
Yeah.
something? Fucking
Get
change
up and
it.
leave.
But
It's like a dad
um,
joke. Okay, go.
but when we open ourselves up to, because I am a Reiki master and I do, like I said before, I call myself a healer. And I think the chakras, healing the chakras and aligning the chakras, opening the chakras are a really big part of my practice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I had some recent experiences, and I can get, y'all, my experiences with Reiki and with energy healing can go from one extreme to the next. The spectrum is wide. I
Mm-hmm.
can sometimes, and I don't know that I've ever shared this publicly. I've seen things. I've seen things. I've had visions of things, and I've had sensations. I've had smells when I'm doing Reiki. And one of my favorite stories is I was doing Reiki on a beautiful soul. This woman, really feeling stuck. I can't remember how old she was. Probably like early 50s, late 40s, maybe a little bit older than that. Anyway, I'm doing Reiki on her. And if you don't know what Reiki is, the really brief explanation I can give is that it is the Eastern medicinal perspective of what Westerners and Western medicine call like our organ systems, like our respiratory system, our
Mm-hmm.
digestive system. And in Eastern medicine, it's represented by these energy centers that open and close. Just like if an artery is blocked, we do surgery to make sure that you don't go into cardiac arrest. Energetically, we would open up that heart chakra. And let me also piggyback and say, I am not a naysayer of Western medicine.
Right.
I believe in Western medicine. Adding these things as adjunct and additional supports, I think is what makes things so much more powerful and more effective, and the efficacy is enhanced. But I do not believe if I have a bladder infection, if I have a urinary tract infection, I'm gonna get on an antibiotic, right?
Right.
Like I'm also going to be doing some energy moving through my body to help that,
Yes.
because I think both of those things can exist simultaneously. So
Yes.
I divert. Yes,
No, I think that's really important to recognize is that these things can exist in the same space. It's not about abandoning one or the other. It's about like what is going to help us to live our most abundant, healthy, vital life, right? Like filled with vitality.
yes,
Um,
we do not need to live in black and white. We do not need to live in rigidity and all or nothing. Two things that may to you or to your upbringing seem to be opposing things can occupy the same space, because they're not really about opposing. They
right.
can really support one another. So I was doing Reiki on this woman. Um, I get to her shoulder and I start to see a stringed instrument. And I can't, so like my eyes are closed. My hands are just, I think one of my hands was like cupping the back of her shoulder, and my other hand was about an inch above her shoulder as she's laying there. And I can't tell if it's a violin or like a cello, like it's murky, whatever. Y'all, this is new for me. I have not allowed myself to tap into this part of me, probably because I just didn't know like it existed, or and just haven't been open to it. But I saw the stringed instrument and I said in that moment, I see what looks like it could be a violin, it could be a cello, it could be something else. I'm not super familiar with all the stringed instruments, so I was like, I don't know. But I was like, I feel warmth, and there's an energetic intensity that I feel at your shoulder that I do not feel when I was at your elbow, bicep, and like it has increased as I've moved up your body. And a tear falls
Oh, yes.
from her eye, and she says, my mom recently passed, and I used to play the violin when I was a kid, and she had asked me for years to pick it back up, and for whatever reason she just never did. And it was one of her mom's kind of like, whether it was a dying wish or it was just a really powerful connection that she made. She's like, my mom wanted me to play so badly, and I've been thinking about my mom. I've been thinking about picking up that violin and starting to play again. And she's like nervous, and there's all kinds of other stuff layered in there, and
Yeah.
we won't go into. But she's like, the fact that you picked up on the violin at my shoulder, and I'm thinking about my mom, and she recently passed, and I want
I
to
just
pick
got
it back up again,
chills.
right? Like, and I'm just like, I literally was dumbfounded, dumbfounded. I'm like, I'm sitting in my chair. I have a rolly chair that goes around my massage table as I go around and do, the full body. But I was just in awe of like this gift that I didn't do. Like, I had to be open to it. But y'all, like, this isn't about ego, and this isn't about being like right or even like proving anything. It's about being open to something that's bigger than you. And I have no scientific support. This is an anecdotal, this is my experience, but that changed me.
Mm,
And I now like want that experience whenever I do Reiki. Like I want, right? Like I want to have these really cool, and it doesn't always happen because I'm not in charge of that.
right.
I'm a conduit. When I start my Reiki, I say prayer and allow me to be a conduit of whatever messaging and energy needs to be transformed, transmuted, transitioned through somebody. Um, but yeah, so I shared that to say like, one, there's just a really cool story, and the um, the addition of any of these energy healings to maybe what you already do. Like, don't stop taking your medication. Don't
Hmm.
stop, don't stop going to see your cardiologist if you have heart disease. Don't stop, but maybe add something a little bit more holistic
Yeah.
That's where I would have said woo-woo, but I said holistic instead. You see how I
Yeah.
changed that?
I see that.
I'm changing as we speak. I'm making progress as we speak. Um, but adding the holistic and the additional support really can't hurt.
No, not at all. Not at all. Actually, it again, just going back to like, it doesn't hurt. It actually does help. And it's so funny because, as you were talking, I'm like, there are so many people that are utilizing this that we look up to all the time, or at least I know in the people in my realm that know these people.
Mhm.
um I think about Bob Proctor. I think about Joe Dispenza, Wayne Dyer, somebody
Mhm.
that most like more people don't know, but I think he's more coming of age with like breath work and soma breath is Niraj. And I mean, you
Mhm.
can find all these people on YouTube, and I've learned so much. He really integrates the science into breath work and like what actually
Yeah.
happens, and how we can navigate all of this again with energy, because breath work is something that I utilize and went through the Soma breath certification and continuing with a Kundalini certification. And just like, because it is so powerful and you see it over and over and over. And even in like manifestation, I say there's a blurb in there on my, landing page or whatever you want to call it, the website, where it's like when I'm doing, a money mindset course that's based around manifestation, or I'm doing a manifestation course. I mean, Gabby Bernstein, every single January, she does a manifestation challenge.
Mhm.
She references Wayne Dyer. That was one of her biggest teachers.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
he was her mentor.
Yes, yes. So, think about the people that you look up to, and look at their spiritual practices as well. Because it all it is scientifically backed. And I know that there are going to be people, there's always research that you can find that's for it, against it, like all that stuff. But again, like truly, what the hell is it hurting? It really is not hurting anything. Manifestation, if you want to hear about a little bit, just a little blurb of quantum physics, get Happy Pocket Full of Money. It talks about that in there,
Yeah.
right? Like introduce yourself to these ideas. And it's so funny because when I went away for the January retreat, I ended up with COVID and I was freaking out. I was like, oh my God, first time ever, which super grateful for. Never had it before. Even though people, like my husband and my kiddo had it, like one of my kids never had it as far as I knew, right? Was not aware of having it. And I remember calling up my holistic team, my mentor, the women that I'm in my coaching group with, who are all holistic. It's the Holistic Business School. Like that's where I go. um, and she gave me the number to this one energetic healer. Then I was like, oh my gosh, I remember when he worked on my friend Jillian. She was pregnant in the hospital with COVID, at like the pinnacle of like when people were turned away from hospitals and stuff like that. And she worked with this gentleman, and she was out of the hospital in 3 days. So, when I was at my retreat, that's what my mentor suggested, and I did. And I'm trying to find his name. Um, Man,
While
I'll
she's
find
looking,
it.
we can also link it in the show notes once we get that
Yeah,
information. It was
yeah.
transformative for you.
I will. I'm gonna say his name is Dave, but anyways, so Kaplan, Teresa Kaplan. Anyway, I know his wife too. But anyway, so I worked with him, and I literally felt like he was working on me from afar. And I remember going through the retreat, and he's like, well, this is the time I can work on you. It was like right in the beginning. It was like a 10 a.m. session or something. And he started working on me. And when he was texting me, like, this is really intense. I think you're just about done, because I feel like he goes through this term of like cooked. Um, I think you're cooked. And it was when I was coughing and like couldn't, like I
Mm.
was having a hard time speaking and stuff like that. He's like, well, I didn't meant for me for that to happen. I'm like, I couldn't text you. It was like right at the end. So, but anyway, but like just knowing that, right? Seeing her progress through that, seeing like and feeling, having that experience myself through that. It's just, I can't deny it. I
Mm,
can't deny that something magical happens. And, all the experiences that I've had through all of these energetic works and people that are going through cancer institutes and, um, just the energy that is put behind the clearing and like we are truly energetic beings. And if we are denying this dimension of ourselves, that's what's actually hurting us. That's what's going to hurt us more than anything, I think. I mean, maybe not more than anything. That could be a little histrionic, but like, but that's
mm,
hurting us to deny ourselves that we are this dimension,
mm,
and this could be a possible healing.
mm.
So that's just I could go on, and I know you could go on and on and on about just like um, all of the experiences that we have had as we're going through this dimension of our lives, professionally and personally. Um, how this shows up in so many different aspects and areas of our life of
Yeah.
yeah, and how powerful it is. And I remember telling my husband about it, and I was like, I know he's not going to get it, and that's fine. But because I let him know immediately. I'm like, oh, guess what?
Yeah.
He's like, and of course his response is like, sweet, sweet, you're sick. Oh, great. He's just like, what
Mm,
else do you say to that? But when I told him about my experience, I just remember him saying, well, if it works for you, then that's all that matters. And I was like, thank you. You don't have to understand it. It's okay.
mm. Right, and frankly, you don't have to understand it. If
Mhm.
it works, right? Like, I don't need to I use the analogy of, like, I don't need to know how electricity works to know that when I flip the light switch, that the lights are gonna come on.
Right.
I don't have to know all that, like, somebody else knows that, and thank God they figured it out and whatever. I'm really grateful for electricity, and Thomas Edison, I'm sure, was involved in that. I don't remember.
Right.
Um, Whatever. Not part of my current, thought process today because I just turn on lights because
Yes.
I know that when I flip the switch, 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10, the light's gonna come on.
Yeah.
I don't have to know. I can't even come up with words that would be electricity. I don't have to know about, like,
The electrical current and like whatever
mhm,
connects and
I don't
but
have to.
we do know about energetic current. That is something that we do know about.
So, naysayers, skeptics, I invite you to give it a go.
Yeah.
Like, allow for there to be some holistic healing or energy work done in your life. And if it doesn't work, then shake it off and keep it moving. Take the
Mhm.
best, leave the rest. But if it
Yes.
does, you become part of the scientifically
Mhm.
proven
Mhm.
holistic
Absolutely.
ways of life.
So I hope that gave you a little bit of insight. And again, if you're looking, you can do all the research. I found this really cool magazine. I told Katie about it. I told another person about it. It's called Psychic Powers. I just found it in the grocery store, and I mean, it is the cost of like a book, and it's worth it. I mean, like if it's worth it, it's worth it if you want to have glimpses into each and every one of the energetic realms,
Mm,
and it gives you like what science says about it, and like it talks about telepathy, and it talks about astral projection. So I mean, like it really gets into it. So
mm,
but the energy healing is really, it's just so cool. It's really powerful, and it has everything in one space, which is always what I like. It's like give it to me in one space so I'm not researching for 20,000 hours, right? Like, because
right.
there's so much
Make it
out
easy.
there.
Make it
Yeah,
easy.
I
You
am
can get
always.
lost. Yeah.
So again, the magazine of Psychic Powers will connect any kind of references, my energy healer, to the show notes. And I would love to, I know we would love to hear like what your experience has been, whether you are practicing it, like having it practiced on you. Typically, that's how we start off. We're like, let me dive into this and I'm going to see what this is all about. And you go to a healer. I mean, it
Mhm.
even talks about acupuncture in here too.
Oh, yeah.
So, just whether it's your experience there or your experience as somebody who's practicing it on somebody else, we would love to hear from you and hear your stories and hear your experiences because they're so powerful. And it could be one or the other. It could be, no, it didn't work. It's a bunch of bullshit. And I would love to have a conversation with you too. Just again, research isn't about declining alternative experiences. It's about taking it all in. And I would bet that, especially within our community, there are probably more people that have had positive experiences. So, but we would love to hear from you regardless. And yeah, we're super grateful that you came and checked in and,
Mhm.
sat here as we chatted about something that we're both very passionate about, that has, I know, changed both of our lives, and continues to change the lives of our clients as well. So, yeah, we have tons of resources for you if you want more resources. And yeah, just reach out, let us know. And we're so excited to hear from you. So, as always, stay compassionate, stay curious, and let your legacy shine. We are always sending so much light and love your way. Mwah.